And then we can just share it to my page too.
Okay, there it goes. There it goes. And I will tag you.
We are on
with Jeremy. Just get you going here at. Okay. Oh, you're not coming up. How weird. There you are. Boom. All right. You are now tagged. Boom. Okay. Good deal. All right. We're good. All right. So 3, 2, 1.
Hello, hello. We are live. We are live for the second episode of the Superhuman Show. I am your host, Jeremy Lastman. It is so exciting to be here. This is, we could say, like the first show without the training wheels. We had Todd on our first episode, and it was really like a primer and like a visioning of the excitement for this show. So I'm really excited to really kick it off and really dive into some practical applications and barrier breaking heights and depths of our of discovery here. So the Superhuman Show, our focus is tapping into the superhuman in every one of us and breaking through barriers of fear and negativity so that we can get more intimate with our hidden strengths and abilities that we might not be aware of. And so this episode will dive into concepts like self-awareness, duality, non-duality, and I want to shed light on misconceptions of what all these things mean, and really getting below the information, getting more into the practical applications, and really, like I said, let's discover these superpowers. So for this episode, I've got 3 objectives. First is we want to break through barriers. Any barriers and on any level, mental, emotional, that limit our potential. We want to empower our inner superhuman and understand these concepts, not just theoretically, but experientially, so that we can really put these to the test in an experimental sense, so that we can move upward from fear to freedom, to more of our natural state. And really, let's offer some practical applications that you can implement right now, experience right now, and turn these into applications. Okay, so let's talk about self-awareness and why self-awareness is your untapped superpower. When I was really trying to understand what self-awareness is in terms of a distinction, a frequency intelligence between what I saw as self-conscious and then self-awareness. These are the 2 things that I found when we start to entertain this conscious evolution and raising our frequency and elevating the states of our consciousness from survival and all the limitations that are imposed onto us, that the programming and conditioning kind of weighs us down by. Self-consciousness was the big picture thing that when I started my journey, my personal development and spiritual journey, self-consciousness was kind of the wrapper for the negative worldview and negative sense of self that I had, that I felt early on that I needed to somehow fix or change about myself. And so what happens when we do confuse self-awareness and self-consciousness? Because they can be entangled, they can be confused, they can blur into something where we think it's self-awareness, but in actuality, what it turns into is just being overly focused on your flaws and really using that to keep you down, keep your power low, or give your power away. So how can we really see and vision more practically what the difference between self-conscious and self-awareness is? When we take a moment and experience self-conscious, I'm self-conscious, I'm speaking to the world, I'm speaking on stage, and all of a sudden this, oh gosh, the camera, the red light is on and I'm frozen, I want to run away, I'm freezing. All those survival instincts start to arise, and you either are going to run away or you're going to freeze and get, trapped in all this overthinking, all this overanalyzing, all this what if scenarios. Your mind gets so caught in the chaos and the turmoil of self-consciousness. But have you really asked yourself what this mechanic, what this operation, not necessarily is at the tail end of it, of the expression of it, but the birth of it, the root of it, the cause of it? And when I took that time to really look, what I noticed was self-conscious really was when the sense of personal identity and fear-driven feelings and emotions would cloud the inner space, cloud the consciousness with, in a sensitive sense, way too much data and information and overwhelm. And this sense of identity and this state of feeling like this separate person with all the collective eyeballs adding pressure to this small sense of self, that is self-conscious. Because it can be both positive and negative, but when we use self-conscious, we're really intimating the negative aspects of the way we feel about ourselves, the pressure we feel, the weight on our shoulders is the self-conscious states of our identity. The over-critical, the victim, the imprisoned sense of self, all the ways that a human being feels limited by reality or by other people is the lower frequencies of self-conscious. So if we are to draw this ladder of frequencies, of low frequency to high frequency, the self-conscious mode is really the driven by the fear-based operating system of survival of the fittest and natural selection. It is the ways in which we protect ourselves, get some sense of safety amidst feeling like a separate being, a separate body, in conflict with the environment, in threat with the environment. So then, what is self-awareness in this kind of vertical ladder that we're painting on low frequency to high frequency, in the sense of our conscious evolution of healing, of freedom, and mastery. And this is where things get a little counterculture. Because we might hear these terms like self-awareness spoken and delivered. But what does it actually mean in a practical, microscoped shift in our consciousness? Because I'm sure this is the Soulology Network. This is an audience that is all about spirituality and evolution and abundance and universal truth and consciousness. And when we really come down to this and where the rubber meets the road, what we're really entertaining here is a shift in what we identify as the mode and operation of identity in the first place. Because in the survival of the fittest, we are taught to identify mostly as the physical body, and then that gets entangled with our mind, which is not in the same dimension as the body, and all that stuff gets entangled in all this confusion and neurotic mess as the self-consciousness. But self-awareness is sort of the subtraction. It's the evolution from this state of identifying as a person, as a limited identity, to identifying as presence itself. And this simplicity is what is so counterculture, but also what makes it so difficult or perceived difficult on an evolutionary level, because how long has the human species been in the threat of their own survival from the animalistic days to even more neurotic intelligence of all the imaginative ways that we put a threat on ourselves if we are separate from the environment. So self-awareness is the awareness of which self you choose to identify with or not. And that takes us to duality. And if you've been in your own personal transformation, self-discovery, you probably understand that duality, once you clear some vision on the game at play, the fear, love, the duality as a game, you begin to understand that duality is like a compass towards your own superhuman, towards you as a superhuman. Because when we apply this evolution from self-conscious to self-awareness, elevating the frequency of above survival and scarcity, what we're doing is in application, we are challenging the belief and the identification of all the ways that we are categorizing duality as a means of defining this limited self. But what if duality and this contrasting experience wasn't about what it means self-consciously, but understanding and being aware of where we are in our own conscious evolution from fear to love. And I can feel the potency and the volatility and the almost like I can empathize in audience connection to the resistance that comes up with challenging the reality of this duality that gives so many problems to the mind and holds this judgment about who you need to believe yourself to be to hold this identity image in place in the fear of its own survival. Because the moment that you challenge the self-consciousness, the states of self-consciousness, and suspend the belief, the same muscle of suspending disbelief that children do so naturally with entertainment and art. It's the same muscle, but suspending belief in everything that is built upon with fear, everything that is operating from fear and negativity. With the self-awareness, what we're doing is seeing duality more as the map of the consciousness, the freedom to move beyond what we in survival consider as boundaries or bounds of containment, of challenging the old definitions of safety and problem and broken and everything that is painting a personified self. If you're aiming towards fearlessness and freedom and mastery, which is closer, is more precise, a focal point towards presence instead of the self-consciousness, that is the exercise of self-awareness, because you're creating more space to, instead of being locked inside a self-conscious paradigm, instead domain where there are walls around yourself, walls that either you can't approach or seem unbreakable. This is why conscious evolution is such an exciting opportunity, why superhuman is such a real species shift or a whole new species in the first place, is because this identity structure that we've been conditioned and programmed because of this belief that duality is the real, what we're doing is zooming out and seeing that self-consciousness is just a lower domain in a map that is infinite, and choosing to approach these prison walls that seem like an authority is not allowing us to approach or go through. Well, by applying self-awareness over self-consciousness, we're disbelieving some very old structures and, like I said, the operating system that came from fear and scarcity, and going to a whole new operating system for the body, mind, and spirit to run, I'm going to say, more effectively and faster, but I don't want to make it seem like it's out. It's actually a closer to natural, subtractive evolution. Because in the survival of the fittest, in natural selection, when evolution is an external force happening to a species, what that does is automatically take the power away from, let's say, the soul, from the higher self versus just the body and mind. And rather than taking the tone of survival, the fear, threat, negativity, disempowerment, symptoms, all the ways that the energy is depressed or repressed or held down, contained, confined, by seeing the operating system in self-awareness. Which self are we actually aware of? The limited self or the limitless self? Well, now we're getting to an application, a discipline that is not merely a hunting and gathering for information and a conditional sense of security, of safety, of protection. Well, by aiming at this fearlessness, this presence, this quantum self, light, beam, we're approaching, or we are claiming or reclaiming and choosing freedom, choosing the more natural intuition, the more natural and spontaneous intuition and effortless being. Over the belief that we are on one or either side of duality and just riding this flat wave of ups and downs. What we're doing is adding a third dimension to the waves, which converts it into spirals with self-awareness versus a flattened self-consciousness. And another way of expressing this, which you're probably familiar with, in that oneness sense, is non-duality, which you've probably heard in the spiritual world a lot. But let's go places today to really experience what this means when we apply this body, mind, and spirit that we used to think was the duality. But this non-duality is when we go beyond the binary and into quantum, or with the theme of the show, with this show, the superhuman realm, limitlessness. Because this activity when it's not merely just physical, just mental, just emotional, just spiritual. When we apply this counterculture, call it experimentation, to not identify with any limitation. It can sound crazy, and it's really not meant for the expression of it, but the inner game play of it. The martial art of choosing conscious evolution over natural selection, which is, oh, evolution is not happening to me as a person. I, as a soul, am directing and piloting this sense of evolution and transformation of this imagination technology, of this body, mind, spirit connection, big picture, when it's more soul rather than person. And I have a funny way of, I made up a word in my work, because you gotta go for some sense of originality, right? Because non-duality and oneness are beautiful spiritual aims and superpowers. But I needed to understand this sort of on a more visual and almost like mathematical level. Because on an imagination, technology, consciousness map, well, what is the difference between duality and non-duality when we're talking about infinite possibilities? Everything is possible when we talk about imagination and consciousness. Well, when I said earlier about this self-consciousness as the flat wave that we ride up and down, the ups and downs of being a person and feeling good and feeling bad, ups and downs. Well, that is when in duality, we are limited to plus and minus. We're either above the line in terms of plus, positive, or we're below the line, negative. And in natural selection, we have no say. But then self-improvement came around in the culture, personal development, self-help. And all of a sudden, now we're starting to put our hands into something where, oh, we can look at the chakras, we can go to the therapy, we can read these books, we can get wisdom from all these different places, we can eat different foods, all these choices that, oh, well, if I take this supplement, then I will sleep better, right? All these ways that we've in science and spirituality have started to, oh, well, if we do this, then we can have better plus and kind of avoid the negative, and mental gymnastics to do this and ninja this, and that's evolution, that's personal development and science and health and wellness, all these great things, right? But what is non-duality from a infinite possibilities lens? I call it quadility instead of duality, because in self-awareness, this brings us closer to cinema, entertainment, where not only are we in a plus and minus scenario, good and bad can be both plus and minus. Bad can be plus and minus. This is intelligence. This is cinema. But what self-awareness really is, why it is a superpower, because our intelligence now has the capability of, oh, wait, here's this really bad thing that in a flat self-conscious way is concrete. It's only bad, closed mind, that's it. But self-awareness, oh, well, bad suddenly now has a choice, plus or minus or plus. So we've expanded the field of possibilities with non-duality to give ourselves more freedom to navigate the compass of duality in a much more empowering and freeing way. Because now, for example, with this bad that used to be only negative, well, now we're asking ourselves, well, what is the opportunity here? What is the gift here? So let's take this to practical application as you're watching here. So feel something that you are incredibly limited by, or the ways in which you are seeing a situation or symptom, and take that and let's really apply what we can do here to flip the polarity and to open up more possibilities of experimenting with self-awareness versus self-consciousness. And I'll share an experience of how I kind of experimented and did my own conscious evolution. So let's use pessimism. I used to have a very low self-esteem. and a worldview, a negative worldview that was really harsh and pessimistic against myself, against who I thought that I was, against what I thought I was capable of. And it kept me kind of locked in a worldview that really kept everything away. It kept me invisible. It kept things at an arm's length and protected me by not letting anything in. Let's even go to that level, the neurotic, it's critical, hot, so critical against myself. And it's just so negative, right? And what happens when the natural selection and this survival of the fittest was really tested and broken? What is I discovered when I put the microscope to the mechanics underpinning, empowering this pessimism. What I saw was fear of communicating, fear of putting myself out there, shame for what I felt as detriments and parts of myself that I wasn't allowed to accept, guilt for characteristics and personality that I felt like I had to dial down. And the more that I tested this self-awareness and presence versus believing in the state of personhood, and tested a non-duality and taking this wild quadility to my compass, to this navigation of my own consciousness beyond just body, mind, spirit, but the whole flow of this imagination technology. What I discovered, or what flipped, when I allowed the negative and positive to open rather than close and be defended, was sensitivity. Was this the superpowers that came from sensitivity. Because I noticed that the muscles of sensitivity, the expression of sensitivity, let's use the metaphor as a sword. Let's use the metaphor of a sword here. So under natural selection, when nature was only happening to me, well, this neurotic intelligence and fear fuel, was taking this superpower of sensitivity and basically taking this very sharp sword and cutting myself unconsciously. Cutting myself, slicing myself down, but I wasn't aware I was doing it. So the moment I shined a light on what was dark and unconscious and preserved by self-conscious states of fear and negativity and scarcity and all the low frequencies that erupts, well, then all of a sudden, from natural selection, where the sword was not really in my hand, but it was, but no, it was evolution and nature was doing it to me because that's the victim of natural selection. Well, suddenly in conscious evolution, I actually took the sword in the other hand, not the unconscious one, not like what I like, not that. I grabbed it metaphorically and realized, self-realized, became awareness of what am I holding? I'm holding a very surgical instrument in my hands. Well, maybe I should first learn how to use it, what it is, like the curiosity first to understand what I'm holding in my hand, the freedom to claim a sense of ownership, not external, not, oh, I don't know how to, I don't know how to stop doing it. The ownership, putting it in a dominant hand, and then the mastery, the ever learning of mastery to wield it consciously instead of unconsciously, to realize the sensitivity as a superpower is there to train and refine how and where to use this blade for maximum effectiveness, from a healing and a freedom and a mastery and the responsibility of conscious evolution versus natural selection. Amazing, amazing stuff. So let me know wherever you're seeing this in the comments, where you're going to take this to an event, a situation, a symptom, a whatever, and share your experiences and realizations for what you do with self-awareness and the realizations from this challenge today, and make sure to use that hashtag superhuman so that we can see that and have something to track in conscious evolutionary terms and soul evolution. And I definitely want to know. And please ask questions. I love to, I'm going to love to interact and get to know the Soulology network and audience that we're building here, this epic community and this huge vision for Soulology. I'm so excited to see where this goes, to see where we want the Superhuman Show to upward and fearlessness all the way, and how we all improve as presence instead of limited persons and people. So we will be back in 2 weeks, October 5th, with the 3rd episode. And the topic is passion as the fuel for superhuman transformation. So I can't wait for that. And I am Jeremy Lassman, It was an honor to be here today. And like I said, questions, comments, experiences, hashtag superhuman, and see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.